Tottenham and Liverpool are battling it out for a trophy-winning Brazilian midfielder. Meanwhile, Aston Villa are rumoured to be bidding for one of Tottenham's playmakers. And, breaking news, recording this at 10 a.m, all the rumours suggest Erik ten Hag's future at Manchester United will be revealed today. I'll be telling you about all that and more in today's episode of Daily Premier League Transfer News. Guys, thank you so much for watching and for all your support and all the comments you're leaving me. Really enjoying having these chats every day with you guys. Please do press like on the video. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and press the bell button if you want to be alerted to when my daily videos come into your inbox. Also, if you want to become a member, only £1 a month. All the details in the description box of how you can become a Patreon or a Pro member. Thanks again, but let's get into it. Liverpool have made the first move when it comes to Atalanta's Ederson, a player who Tottenham have had on their list for over 6 months now. We were rumoured to be maybe making a bid for him back in January, but it didn't happen, and now he's top of the list for our number 6 wants, for an enforcer, for someone to replace Pierre-Emile Højbjerg in the squad. But Liverpool, under their new manager Arne Slot, have made the first moves and put in a bid of £45 million. Now, the problem with that, of course, is Tottenham are looking to offload players first. They want to get rid of some of the wage bill. They want to get some of the players who do not have the attributes to fit into Ange Postecoglou's style of play before they make their bids for players. Is this going to be another one that we let slip through the net? What do you think of Ederson from Atalanta? Won the Europa League this season, of course. Is he someone that you think would fit in perfectly at Tottenham, or are you willing to let Liverpool get in there and take him? Of course, if it was still Jurgen Klopp in charge, you'd say Ederson would definitely make that move to Liverpool over Spurs. It would be a no-brainer. They're in the Champions League, challenging for the league every season. However, bit of a new legacy starting at Liverpool, bit of a new project, and who knows what players will think, especially if they get to have the phone call with Ange Postecoglou. So let me know what you think of Ederson. Meanwhile, Aston Villa. Maybe this isn't as weird a story as I first thought. Aston Villa and Unai Emery are looking to bid for Gio Lo Celso from Spurs, the player who doesn't really get on the pitch enough, but they're willing, apparently, to bid upwards of £15 million to take Gio Lo Celso from us and add him to their squad depth for their Champions League challenge this season. The reason I kind of paused there is, are they going to challenge for it, or will they just enjoy it? It might be the same thing. No pressure on them, realistically. Apparently, according to Tom Barkley, several other clubs also interested. I know the Real Betis chairman came out yesterday and said, we are always linked with Gio Lo Celso because of the amazing year he had with us on loan previously, but we haven't made a bid for him yet. We do like him, he said, but we haven't made a bid yet. So lots of people, lots of clubs, lots of recruitment, sporting directors, posturing at the moment, seeing what happens, maybe waiting for the Euros to see if some of their players' market value will inflate from having good Euros. I think Gio Lo Celso will definitely leave Tottenham Hotspur, and actually, I would love to see him go to Aston Villa. I'd like to see how he'd do in a Premier League team and see if he could get fitter for them than he ever did for Spurs. If you haven't seen it already, yesterday we lost our assistant manager, Chris Davis. He's become the new manager of Birmingham City, replacing Wayne Rooney. What a strange season Birmingham had last year. They were doing really well up towards the playoff places. They then replaced their manager with Wayne Rooney and basically hardly won a game after that. And so they've gone for a kind of more forward-thinking, younger, data-driven coach in Chris Davis, who has had lots of suitors over the past year. And it'll be really interesting to see where Ange Postecoglou goes next. I've already seen a lot of Spurs fans on Twitter saying if he appoints Ryan Mason or Mile Jedinak as his assistant, we might as well give up now. A lot of kind of negativity towards those men. I think Ryan Mason kind of, let me know what you think, but I think he kind of gets tarred with a difficult brush by some Spurs fans because, you know, he's been caretaker manager a few times. He's obviously been at the club a long time, but he's a very highly respected coach. He's obviously very young, learning his trade, but really there's no reason why he can't be a good coach. Every time he's come in and been the caretaker manager, he's tried to get us to play progressively, and he's had some good results. I'm thinking mainly, do you remember that Leicester game away on the last game of the season when Gareth Bale played his last game for the team a couple of years ago? Thought that was a very impressive performance. But I don't doubt that Ange Postecoglou has a long list, and so will Johan Lang, a long list of potential assistant coaches. And Ange has been very open before about liking to bring in new coaches all the time. Wherever he goes to a new club, he doesn't bring a team with him. So he'll probably interview a fair few people from outside to see whether they're interested in becoming the assistant coach. Let me know in the comments how much you think this will affect Spurs. Obviously, Chris Davis took the majority of the coaching sessions in terms of leading them. Ange likes to take a back seat. So it'll be very interesting to see how that changes. Let me know what you think. I'm very intrigued to see what happens. Obviously, yesterday, the official England announcement was made for the final squad for the Euros. I told you the day before, James Maddison was already out of it. Jack Grealish also not in it. Harry Maguire hasn't made it. But James Maddison yesterday on Instagram gave us some quotes as to how he feels. He said, "Devastated doesn't quite cut it. Trained well and worked hard all week, but if I'm honest with myself, my form for Spurs when coming back from injury in the second half of the season probably wasn't at the levels I had set, which gave Gareth a decision to make. I still thought there would be a space for me in a 26-man squad, as I feel I bring something different and had been a mainstay in this whole qualifying campaign for Euro 2024 in Germany. But the manager has made the decision and I have to respect that. I'll be back, I have no doubt. Wishing the boys all the luck in the world out in Germany. Unbelievable group and lads that I literally call some of my best friends. I genuinely hope football comes home." When I first read that, I actually got a little bit emotional. I thought that was total class. I wrote it on Twitter. What a class act that is. He's done really well in kind of such a short period of time in terms of how long the Instagram message is, to really convey his devastation. Also show a little bit of anger. I think that bit where he says, "I still thought there would be a space for me in a 26-man squad," I think that shows a little bit of anger, saying, I think realistically, from all the time I've given you and what I've shown you before, maybe you could have found a slot for me. But then also that bit at the end where he's saying, wishing them all the luck in the world, genuinely hope football comes home, shows that he's a team man, and although he's gutted, he wants the squad to do well. James Maddison has only gone up in my estimation yesterday after that, and I've been consistent with this. I'm glad he's not going. I want him to have a proper rest, come back fighting for Spurs. I think he'll have the bit between his teeth now. He'll be so motivated at the beginning of next season, and that can only benefit Tottenham Hotspur. I'm sure you'll have seen yesterday, Sonny scored 2 goals for South Korea in a, I think, 7-0 victory for them. And he's also given some quotes after the game saying, "It's not over for me yet. Physically, I'm feeling better than I ever was." I don't know whether he's talking about the season not being over or his career not being over, but his career certainly isn't over. He's going from strength to strength. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. We just need to get Sonny in those positions where he can score those goals. And those best positions for him might well just be getting him in that kind of inside left forward pocket where he can cut in and bend those shots into the far right-hand corner. He did it yesterday for South Korea. That's his kind of trademark finish. And there was just too many periods in this season where we weren't getting him in those positions. That's what we need to improve on, and that's what I think we can improve on with some signings in the forward areas to help him out. Meanwhile, Mickey van der Ven played for Holland, and he played at left back. And I don't know if you've seen this on YouTube, check it out if you haven't, but he does one incredible 1-2 out on the left and then gets to the byline and whips in an amazing cross at Wijnaldum. Should have scored, but it was saved. But Mickey van der Ven showing how brilliantly flexible he is. He can play anywhere. And Ronald Koeman said, "I'm more than satisfied with the performance from Mickey van der Ven," and why wouldn't you be? What a player to have in your Euros squad, because he can play left and he can play centre half. I've said it before, I'd like him to play alongside Van Dijk, but they've got options there with Van der Ligt and stuff like that. Sorry, de Ligt, not Van der Ligt. Meanwhile, Tottenham yesterday took up the option, or at least it was announced that they took up the option to extend Joe Rodon's contract for 1 more year. So basically he'd come to the end of his contract, but there was an extension option that Tottenham have taken up. And that is clearly because clubs, probably championship clubs or lower Premier League clubs, or maybe those championship clubs who've just been promoted, because of the good season Joe Rodon had at Leeds, they're interested in taking him, and Daniel Levy and Spurs clearly think they can get some kind of transfer fee for him this summer. With only 1 year left on his contract, maybe realistically something like £5 million is something we should take, and that would be a good buy for any championship club. Joe Rodon did a great job at Leeds, and I think we would have seen him as a mainstay in the Premier League for Leeds had they not lost that playoff final. Little bit of interesting news around our former player Tom Carroll. If you remember him, nice little player, never quite had the strength, I think, to make it at Spurs. Him and Harry Winks, kind of similar players. Tom Carroll apparently has spent last season, or the 22-23 season, training with Tottenham's under-21s, trying to regain his fitness, sharpness, and a love for the game. He's spoken before a little bit out of falling out of love for the game as he's kind of dropped down the leagues. Apparently, such was his impact on the training ground that Spurs offered him a coaching role, but Tom Carroll declined it because he wants to keep playing. That's according to The Athletic. I love hearing those little tidbits about former Spurs players, what they're doing, and it's nice to hear that Tottenham are giving opportunities for their former players to train with them, and also then coaching opportunities afterwards. Some more general news now, but also relevant to Spurs. Ex-manager Maurizio Pochettino, I still hold him in legendary status. Let me know what you think of Poch in the comments. Do you think his going to Chelsea has tarnished anything, or the way that his last season ended at Spurs? I just had such amazing moments with Mauricio Pochettino. But anyway, he is now leading the race to be appointed Manchester United manager if Erik ten Hag is sacked. And that's interesting. It's a big if, because the breaking news this morning, I'm recording this at 10 a.m. as I said towards the top, so it hasn't yet happened yet, but apparently the decision on Erik ten Hag is going to be made today, or announced today, and I have a strong feeling that ten Hag will be sacked. That is my opinion. If I'm wrong, you can call me out on it in the comments. You can laugh at me, whatever. But I think they've gone through this entire kind of investigation into the season at Manchester United. Lots of rumours saying Pochettino is the leading contender. Obviously, they were rumoured to be going for Kieran McKenna as well. I'm not sure all that can happen and then them turn around and say, actually, we're going to stay with Erik ten Hag. It's very rare that a new owner will come in, even though Ineos, they're not the full owner. I think they've got, 25%? But they're in charge of football matters. Very rare that a new kind of group of people in charge come in and don't want to make their own change. And that's why I think that ten Hag will leave, and it might well be announced today, and maybe Mauricio Pochettino will go there. And Pochettino, let's not forget, when he was at Spurs, one of the reasons I didn't have that big a problem with Daniel Levy sacking him is because Poch was angling for the Man United job for quite a while. He was kind of, fluttering his eyelashes at them a little bit. He talked a lot about the big rebuild that Spurs needed to do, and I know he looked over at Old Trafford and thought, that is a job I could take on. And I think he would be an unbelievable manager for Manchester United, who are trying to leave the past behind and move forward and grow, and not anymore sign big name players on huge wages, but sign hungry young players. And that would suit Mauricio Pochettino down to the ground. But let's see what happens. As I said, it hasn't been announced yet, and maybe they'll say that Erik ten Hag stays, in which case Poch would have to look for another job. Meanwhile, Jose Mourinho has been talking again. He was asked about Spurs once again, and talking specifically about Harry Kane. He says the only thing he is missing is to win a trophy. He was my player at Tottenham, and I was going to win one with him, but I was sacked 6 days before the final. Let me know what you think about comments like that from Jose Mourinho. That is complete madness to me, that he can say, oh, we were going to win that League Cup final. I mean, all the form in the months leading up to that, the month or two leading up to that, said absolutely not. The football was absolute dross. It was horrible to watch. We went, well, where was it we went to? Like Hajduk Split, we were 2-0 up. I don't think, somewhere like that in the Balkans. 2-0 up after the first leg, lost 3-0 to a team who didn't even have a manager. Their manager was in prison. Like, that was just embarrassing. And Daniel Levy pulled the trigger, and I think he was right to pull the trigger, because if Mourinho had somehow won that League Cup final, then yeah, we'd have had the trophy, but we'd have had to keep Mourinho for probably the next 2 years, and it would have been horrible. But look, that I know, it's football subjective. Let me know again in the comments, what do you think about that? Should I just have been happy with a trophy? Or, do I want to kind of grow, kind of to play better football and then win trophies because of that? Spoke about James Maddison earlier. I don't know if you saw, but Neil Maupay put a picture of him holding darts in front of a dartboard when it was announced that Maddison didn't make the England squad. Maupay, for me, like, mate, you do not have the career to be able to troll other players who are internationals. You literally don't. You were on loan at Brentford this season. They didn't even want to keep you, mate. You're at Everton. They don't want you. I think stay in your box. I really do. Some other transfer news. Dominic Solanke at Bournemouth had a great season. Let's not forget. Also was brilliant in the England unders for years. So he's got really good talent and is now proving it at Premier League level. He has apparently a £65 million release clause in his contract that can only be activated by certain clubs. Also, because he came from Liverpool before then, Liverpool have a sell-on clause as well. So I don't know. What do you think? Is that a lot of money to get a kind of now proven Premier League goal scorer out of Bournemouth? I'm not sure it is. I think maybe if there is a club out there who needs a big number 9, and could it be Spurs, Solanke is certainly one I'd look at. Let me know what you think. Would you choose Ivan Toney over Solanke? Because they're both apparently on our list, although all the talk is that we're more interested in Ivan Toney at the moment. Liverpool have apparently identified Bruno Guimaraes of Newcastle as a target this summer. For financial fair play reasons, profit and sustainability rules, as I've talked about a lot, Newcastle may well have to sell one person before the June the 30th deadline, which we're looking at, it's only about 23 days now. It's coming on. So apparently, all the talk coming out of Portugal, Record Portugal, is that a £68 million bid might get Bruno Guimaraes out of Newcastle. That seems low to me, but obviously, as I've talked about a lot, these clubs, these vultures circling those teams who need to sell on before June the 30th are waiting. They are waiting until the money has to come down. Liverpool also apparently pressing for Aston Villa's Douglas Luiz, and they want £59 million for him. As I said yesterday, a big list of the clubs who need to sell before June the 30th has come out, and two of those clubs are Newcastle and Aston Villa. So Liverpool are sniffing around both of those clubs, and the money apparently to get Douglas Luiz, who is a great player, really loved watching him, out of Aston Villa, £59 million. Moving on to Chelsea, Borussia Dortmund are trying to get Ian Maatsen on a permanent deal from Chelsea. Obviously, he was on loan there. They want to get him for about 25 million euros, but his release clause is 35 million euros. So he is a priority to Borussia Dortmund this summer. They do want him through the door, but Chelsea playing hardball on that. Armando Broja is going to be leaving Chelsea this summer. That's not really a surprise, but apparently AC Milan looking to maybe get him in. I'm not sure. I like Broja, but I'm not sure he's quite got what it takes to score regularly in the Premier League. So maybe a broad move for him would make sense. Obviously, talked a little bit earlier about that final squad who have been picked for the England team. The other players who didn't make it alongside James Maddison, Curtis Jones, Kwanzaa, Harry Maguire, Jack Grealish, James Trafford and Jared Branthwaite. The reason I want to bring that up is, would you want Jack Grealish at Spurs? Obviously, he's on huge wages. He's on probably 250 grand a week at Man City, so it would be problematic. But if I'm Jack Grealish this summer and I've just been left out of the England squad, I am looking for somewhere to go. He's been in stasis at Man City this season. I think he's only started something like 4 games, maybe all season. He needs his career to get a little bit of a boost up. And obviously, with all the kind of ifs, whats and maybes with Man City over the next year or so, if I was Jack Grealish, I'd be saying to my agent, where could I maybe get a move to be a kind of number one player, the first name on the team sheet. I love the way he's kind of a classic Spurs player for me. Proper flair, wins so many free kicks, loves to drop a shoulder, beat a man, kind of Chris Waddle-esque from my childhood. Chris Waddle and Paul Gascoigne, they wanted to get on the ball, they wanted to beat players, they wanted to win free kicks and score free kicks. And Jack Grealish is one of those players. Now, obviously, the risk is playing devil's advocate. Players who have gone to the biggest clubs and won the biggest trophies, can they ever get motivated again if they move to a club who isn't quite at that level? I would like to say someone like Jack Grealish would want to come to a club like Spurs and say, well, I want to be the main man alongside James Maddison, alongside Brennan Johnson, help him grow, alongside Sonny, to be the first players who lift trophies for Spurs for a number of years. So, very interesting one there. Some more general news in terms of the legalities of the Premier League. So bleak what Man City have been doing and Chelsea have been doing. And David Ornstein yesterday announced that the Premier League has failed in its bid to close the loophole that lets clubs use profit from the sales of hotels, training grounds or other tangible assets in financial fair play and profit and sustainability rules submissions. Now, obviously, that is about Chelsea, who have sold their own hotel to themselves, and they've sold some of their training ground to themselves. And when I say themselves, I mean a sister company owned by Clearlake and Todd Bowley. For me, I do not understand this. This is cheating the system as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of stuff you'll see on Twitter at the moment from like Man City fans, Newcastle fans, and bizarrely Everton fans about the kind of what they call like the red hierarchy, which is the clubs like Man United, Arsenal and Liverpool who, according to these other clubs' fans, they're the clubs that are making financial fair play happen so that they can stay the biggest clubs in the world. My argument is this. Those clubs are big because over decades and decades, they've grown their clubs through winning, through history and through tradition. It's hard for me to say that about Arsenal, but in the 80s and the 90s, they won everything over and over again, and they've become a bigger club because of it. Clubs like Newcastle and Chelsea did it by just cheating the system and buying everything before the system was invented, by buying it up. But clubs like Newcastle and their fans who are now angry that they can't do it the same way, no, the rules were put in place so that this kind of sports washing stuff, like Chelsea did it, like Man City did it, can't just happen over and over again. And I agree with it. Let me know in the comments. Do you agree with it? Or should everybody be allowed to spend what they want, which is what Man City want, what Chelsea want, what Newcastle want? I think there have to be some rules in place. And all of those clubs signed up to those rules when they joined the Premier League. So as far as I'm concerned, you can't sign up to them and then complain about them afterwards. Other news, the Premier League clubs have voted 19-1 to keep VAR. Obviously, Wolves brought forward a motion that they wanted to get rid of VAR, And now, I said it earlier in the week, I'll say it again. They voted 19-1. They want some changes to it. Fine, it should evolve. But do not complain about VAR anymore. If you're a football club now, you voted for it 19-1. You cannot complain about it. No more of those Instagram messages and tweets after games complaining about VAR. Moving on, finally, the 10 Premier League clubs. There was a Premier League AGM yesterday. That's why all this kind of news is coming out as to what happened at that AGM. But 10 Premier League clubs have shot down the EFL New Deal vote. That is to do with the amount of money that filters down from the Premier League into the Championship and the leagues below to help those clubs below it. And the clubs that have voted it down are Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea and Liverpool, amongst others. Apparently, some have even discussed legal action against the regulator, and some want to ditch that deal entirely. The EFL clubs need this deal to go through. They need the money. They're all suffering. And I have to say, and I'll include Spurs in this, I'll include Daniel Levy in this, I kind of think it's disgusting what the Premier League chairmen are doing. Of course, they're businessmen, so they're always looking out for their own, but they're just trying to kick this down the road, kick the can down the road so that they don't have to give any of their broadcasting money down the pyramid. And I think it has to happen. We have to keep this 92-team league system going. We have to protect those teams that aren't as lucky as our teams are to be in the top league. Finally, Manchester City's rivals apparently feel that there will be political pressure on ministers to intervene over the 115 charges brought by the Premier League. This is according to the Times. And then also Chelsea, Aston Villa and Newcastle all have sympathy, apparently, for Man City's position after they launched their legal attack on the Premier League. Now, in terms of what those fears are, the fears are because Abu Dhabi own Manchester City, that all of the trade links between the British government and Abu Dhabi will be at threat if the Premier League go through with giving Man City a punishment. And to be honest, although it sounds a bit conspiratorial, it would not surprise me in the slightest. There's a general election next year. I'm more hopeful that with a Labour government and Keir Starmer, they wouldn't want to do something as underhand and shady as that. But it's football and nothing would surprise me. Let me know in the comments what you think about all that. What do you think is going to happen with Man City's 115 charges? Guys, thank you so much for watching and engaging with me all week on my videos. Really looking forward to talking to you some more in the comments. Let me know anything you want to talk about in the comments and I'll definitely reply to you. I'll be back next week with more. Please do give this video a like, press subscribe and become a member. Only £1 a month really helps me and supports me to make this content for you. And as always, if you want to listen to this as a podcast, just go over to wherever you get your podcasts and type in the Spurred On podcast and it's available there. Have a great weekend. I'll be back on Monday. Thanks so much. Cheers.